Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris. I'm one of your hosts, and as always, I am joined by the intrepid duo, Alberto and Jim. How's it going, gents?
I'm trying to figure out what intrepid. You put off guard with these big words, these dictionary words. I'm already lost.
Let's try it again.
I do like to use big words every now and again. Well, it's a good thing. We'll just leave it at that. It's a good thing.
It's all good.
Yeah,
we're good.
Okay, so what's Jim? What's new in your world?
What is new in my world? So I have purchased 3 keto bricks, which I know that you are a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
First round of going through these, and so I have 3 of them. The one that I am currently working on is the cookies and cream crunch keto brick. And so far, so good. I will say it's not the texture that I expected it to be. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just not what I expected. I was imagining maybe it was that subconscious part of my brain, something a little bit more of like a fudge brownie kind of thing, and it's a little bit more chewy than that. But for a meal replacement and taste-wise and everything, I'm thrilled so far. So that's my first one to give it a shot.
Awesome. Well, our guest today, just to throw the hint out, we'll be able to speak to some of that. Brandon is manager of Keto Brick and operations, and he's going to be able to help us. So we've got Brandon Clark on the show this week, and we're excited to have you here. So Alberto, what's new with you?
Coming to you from beautiful Wichita Falls, about 5 hours away from home, because that's how my life is. But I would say what's new and definitely most interesting is my so far successful strict keto high fat bulk has plateaued. I am no longer gaining weight at 3,700 calories and 310 grams of fat, and I think my waist is shrinking again.
Oh Lord!
Oh my gosh!
What in the world?
I mean, I don't know. I don't even I've been, and Brandon is gonna love this. I've been doing this. I've been eating 3,700 calories and 310 grams of fat since the middle of July. I did gain about 5 pounds since then, but I'm stuck at like 180, 181, and my pants are getting comfortable again. So it's like this voodoo is freaking me out.
Yeah. We had, in fact, this the episode that's coming out while the week that we're recording this is when we have our conversation about calories and how they matter and how they don't. And this is one of those times where it doesn't seem to matter what you do with calories as long as you're using them.
And let me throw the caveat out there that at one point, and there's a whole episode about this. Talk about that. There was one time where my metabolism was as broken, if not more broken, than anyone's, and so this to me is just, at 40 years old, this is just completely freaking mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. You have fixed your metabolism, that's for sure. It's running on all cylinders. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive into some shout outs real quick. Jim, who are you gonna shout out this week?
My shout out is to, I believe, one of our newer members. I don't know this gentleman. I really haven't engaged him too much in the group. Stephen Brassard, if I'm pronouncing that right, posted up a couple of photos, kind of a Transformation Tuesday that we do, kind of the before and now, so to speak. So his write-up says, I started keto on March 22nd, and I set myself 3 goals. 2 were realistic, and 1 I felt was not. Now, this is being recorded at the end of October. So March to October, that's almost 8 months-ish kind of thing. Today, I'm at the unrealistic goal in less than a year. I started at 391 pounds. My unrealistic goal was to get under 300 pounds. Today, I weighed in at 299.3. So kudos to Stephen and, the side-by-sides and everything like that. I mean, it is an obvious change for the better for the guy, and just fantastic job for setting what he felt was an unrealistic goal, and in less than 12 months, he hit it. So fantastic job to Stephen.
Absolutely, and I bet he's got some new goals that he probably would have never, ever thought, and he's going to reach them. He's going to reach them. Yep. Alberto, how about you?
That's going to be kind of a blanket shout out. I travel a lot for work, in case you haven't noticed. And to all the guys out there in the group and anywhere else for that matter that are doing the best that they can given the circumstances they're in. You know, we don't always end up at the best particular restaurant. Sometimes I just end up where the customers want to go. Sometimes you end up with what's available in your town. But I mean, these guys are out there making the best decisions they can given their circumstances. And that's a commendable effort because, you know, they could eat the whole pizza, but they're not. They're scraping the toppings off. And, you know, it might not be the greatest dinner option in the grand scheme of things, but it's what they got in front of them and it's what they're going to eat. And it falls within plan. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. You post it pretty regularly whenever you're posting pictures. Places change, keto doesn't. And I think that's absolutely true. But it takes a lot of effort sometimes to that. I am going to shout out Mark Silberg. He posted a picture that he'd been lurking for a while. Posted a picture from this week's Transformation Tuesday, and he kind of does a little bit of get to know you. I liked this a lot. So Mark, thank you for that. Gave some 12 random facts about him and gave a good overall picture of his life and what he's kind of who he is. And that's really cool. But he has done some amazing work to reclaim his health. And my colorful expression that I used in commenting on his post was, "Holy shnikes, you look good." So chances are, if you can spell how I spell shnikes, you can find my post and then find his. Good, excellent job, Mark. Definitely keep up the good work. And I hope that you're not drinking any Coca-Cola in your Coca-Cola collecting, because that's one of the things that he does is collects.
Try saying that again.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, that he's doing a great job. Now, when this airs, it will be in the thick of Carnovember. So an encouragement to the group, those of you who are kind of going along with this and trying to do a month of carnivore. How's it going? Share within the group. This should be airing 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Are you seeing your cravings kind of go down? How do you feel about coming up to Thanksgiving? Things like that. So share what's going on with it. Definitely try to let us know how that's going for you and how you're feeling, because by now you should have had a couple weeks of at least semi-strict carnivore, and you should be feeling some changes more than likely. So let us know. Well, that's enough banter for me. Any other news or topics that you guys want to cover before we dive into our guest?
I hope that by the time the show comes out, we've crossed the 3,000 member mark for the Keto Man's Club group on Facebook. So that is huge. I'm just amazed every day that I come into that group and read stories of how guys are doing. It's just awesome. And I can't get over it sometimes how this has come about. So hopefully as we get into the holiday season, you know, I'm not going to fault anybody for enjoying grandma's sugar cookies on Christmas Day or anything like that. You know, do what you got to do to enjoy the holidays and everything, but jump right back in, get on it, because we're all in this to help one another on this journey.
Absolutely. Okay, well, today we are joined by Brandon Clark. He is NAKA. Well, I guess it'd be world champion, because technically NAKA is supposed to be international. NAKA bodybuilding competition winner from 2019. He did a phenomenal job. We're going to get, he does a few other things, like maybe just kind of a few, including being father and manager at the Keto Brick compound. So let's dive right on in. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's a honor to be on your podcast. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's really great to have you on. And me and Alberto, we got to see you up in Dallas a couple weeks ago, and the pictures online don't do it justice. So you did quite the number on yourself, and in a very good way. So very inspiring, very challenging to me personally to tell myself, why do you have excuses again? Because and we'll get into all that. I have questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And for the listeners that are probably like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Take us through your October 12th. Now, it doesn't got to be anything crazy, just a few minutes on what you went through and what you accomplished on October 12th.
Yeah.
Because me and Chris were there, and it was pretty awesome. So we could talk about it vaguely, but I want to hear it briefly just from your perspective.
Definitely. So yeah, October 12th in Dallas, Texas was the first ever keto bodybuilding competition, and it was by the National Athletic Keto Association, NAKA, and so I competed in this event after 20 weeks of competition prep, and actually got into the best physical shape of my life, the leanest I have ever been as an adult, and ended up competing and against 4 other competitors, and then ended up taking first. Fortunately, my oldest boy my oldest boy of 5, so I have 5 children, and my oldest was able to come, and then my boss, Robert Sykes, the owner and founder, creator of Keto Brick, he actually arranged to surprise me and got my brother, one of my 6 brothers, all the way here from Virginia to be there at the competition with me. So it was an amazing experience. My first ever competition, and one thing that's really unique that I did was not only, is it pretty unique in and of itself to utilize a ketogenic approach for a bodybuilding competition, but I also did it without a gym membership. I did all of my workouts at home in my garage. Didn't use any weights, only used body weight exercises and resistance bands, and did that all in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah, comfort.
It was not comfortable, but I did it in my own home, in my garage.
Yeah, and that was the part that was very challenging to me, was that I'd kind of gotten myself to the point where I am legitimately extremely busy between podcasting, between work. I am extremely busy, church things, personal things, and all that stuff. And so I've been, you call it plateau, you call it wall. I'll call it, my body found a comfortable place. I ate mainly keto for the most part, and I had just stalled out about 30 pounds before where I'd like to be. And the truth is, I was giving myself a whole bunch of excuses. And I hear your story and your prep, and that 30 to 45 minutes of workout a day with resistance bands and whatever space you have in your house. I'm like, okay, just kill me now, because I don't have a leg to stand on. So yeah.
Do you have any idea what your body fat percentage was when you stepped on stage? I mean, I have a guess, and my guess is somewhere between 5 and 7%, 7% maximum. But did you have any idea of what you stepped on stage at?
I didn't actually test, but Robert Sykes, he's as much of he's definitely an expert, and he said that he was certain I was below 6% body fat.
Wow.
So I'd
he had
never been that
vascularity.
low. Yeah, that was the shape I showed up in. Yeah, I have never been, in that great a physical condition before, and really didn't, know if I had the ability to bring that kind of package on show day. And I was very happy to see the results. The Deeper State Keto program worked wonders for me.
Absolutely. Well, we kind of dove into the deep end at the start. Let's go ahead and come back to the beginning a little bit, and let's get your story kind of lead us up to you finding keto, what health journey you've been on, and things like that. Let's lead up to keto and things like that, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, absolutely. So I got into health and fitness as a kid when I I was your typical chubby, overweight kid that got made fun of for being overweight, and that really, that hurts. I still remember it, vividly, being made fun of for being overweight. And when I was in middle school, my dad, who was a police officer at the time, he actually competed in the EAS Body for Life competition that Bill Phillips put on back in the mid 90s. And that was my first time really being exposed to health and fitness in terms of making a transformation. And I saw my dad completely transform his physique and get into the best physical shape I had ever seen him in. And from that moment, I was hooked. I realized there was actually something I could do about being overweight. And once I started working out, I was hooked on it. It lit a fire in me. And I started, reading every muscle magazine I could get my hands on, every book I could get my hands on. My parents supported my, health and fitness passion and purchased me and my 6 brothers weight sets for the house so that we could work out. And
probably cheaper than a gym membership for 6.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then we could still technically do it under their supervision and everything. But then I got into football, and working out is naturally a part of that. And the nutrition protocol I followed is typically the average muscle magazine, high protein, high carb, low fat. And then if you want to cut, you cut the carbs with the fat, and you're pretty much a zombie and feel miserable, and you're choking down dried out chicken breasts and broccoli. And
chicken and rice. Oh man, so much chicken and rice.
Oh, I know. Like, and that's the protocol I followed, and it worked. It worked, but it was miserable. And I couldn't maintain it. So I essentially began, as I, went through my teenage years and played football in middle school and high school, and became an adult. I was essentially going through a repetitive yo-yo diet. About every year, I would gradually put on more and more weight until I, became disgusted with myself, and I would say, no, right, that's enough, no more. And I would be working out all this time. I just couldn't sustain the results I'd gotten from the prior cut. And so I would do this grueling, 12 to 16 week cut, and where I'm essentially like down in water just to get the dried chicken breast down. And this continued on into adulthood. So I ended up becoming a police officer out of high school. I actually got hired in a civilian position first as a police cadet, full time at 18, and then went through the police academy when I was 20. I also got married when I was 18, and my wife got pregnant with our first child a year later. And so I kind of did a lot of things really, really fast, and it was pretty overwhelming. But the physical fitness was always a center, very like grounding thing in my life, something that relieved a lot of stress and I got a lot of enjoyment out of. And as a police officer, I found it very important, for my body to handle the crazy shift work and all the overtime and all the stress, but then also to be able to survive, an attack or a fight with a suspect or something like that. So as I continued, and my wife and I continued to have more children, I also began doing more and more varied assignments in law enforcement, some very dangerous, stressful, and non-family friendly assignments. So I ended up being on a street-level drug interdiction unit for a couple years, went undercover in narcotics for 4 years, and then was on the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI, working national security cases, worked human trafficking, and was on the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. So physical fitness remained very important in my life, but my nutrition was all over the place. And actually, if I'm brutally honest, the more children I had and the crazy work schedule, my nutrition was the first thing to go out the window. And I actually got to the heaviest point that I was when I was undercover in narcotics, and that was at just over 200 pounds. And
How tall are you?
So I'm
Brandon?
about 5'10".
Okay.
And it was a very unhealthy, 203 pounds was about where I topped out at. And, it wasn't just the physique that was suffering. Nobody really knew it about me, but I was struggling with increasing compounding issue of depression and anxiety. And it actually got to a point to where I remember it was in 2016. I was on the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, and none of these issues affected my work performance. I was able to hold it all together, but I was really struggling with depression and anxiety, and nobody knew anything about it. Not even my wife. I kept it entirely to myself, and I just didn't know what was going on. I knew my physical fitness was slipping out of my control very quickly. I had no energy. I had 4 or 5 children at this point, and
I love that. I'm sorry, 4 or 5. I don't know.
it was a lot. It was a lot. After about 3, it's just like, it is what it is.
When they start being able to take care of each other at a certain point, right?
Oh, yeah, that is true. They do end up being able to at least assist to a certain extent.
Yep.
When they want to.
Exactly. There's always a battle to make it happen. But yeah, I found myself really in a depression and anxiety struggle. And what I ended up finding out from another police officer, a very close friend of mine, was that I was dealing with the compounding issues of PTSD from the things that I was experiencing on the job and the things that I was being exposed to. And so I got to a point with this that I actually started to get worried about myself. I was more worried about myself mentally than physically, actually, and I started to pray to God I didn't know what was going on with me, but I have a serious problem, and calling out to God for help because I was really worried. And when you're in law enforcement, you can't really. There's a stigma, that you can't really talk about these things, because if they hear that you're having, depression and anxiety, then there's an immediate concern of whether or not you're fit for duty. I mean, you're out there carrying a gun, you're doing stressful work, and if they have a concern of whether or not you're fit for duty, then you have the potential of being placed on administrative leave until you can be tested for somebody to determine whether or not you're fit for duty. And during that time, you can't work any of the overtime assignments that most police officers become dependable on in order to provide for their family, which was my situation exactly. And so I felt like I couldn't go to anyone, and it was a horrible time. But it was amazing. It was during that time. It was just a little bit after I actually started praying about it that I went away with my brothers and my dad for like a guy's weekend. And my dad started talking about this ketogenic diet and started sending me articles about all the studies about people transforming their lives, and not only their physical change, but their mental health and the clarity and focus and energy benefits of keto. And so I decided to go ahead and take a shot at it. This is in the fall of 2016, and I, like most people, when I first tried, did not do my research at all. I just, I cut all the carbs. I really wasn't, you think you're getting a lot of fat when you first start, but you're really not getting enough. And I ended up with an unbearable case of the keto flu. It was horrible. And I very quickly, within those first 2 weeks, got to a point where I was like, forget this. This is horrible. And I was like, I can't even function. And fortunately, by that point, I had watched so many videos on YouTube about it that I was convinced, and read these articles that my dad sent me. I was convinced that I must be doing something wrong. So I actually dug in and did my research, and ended up coming across one of Jason Whitrock, one of his videos on YouTube called the Top 5 Keto Mistakes. And that was where I learned about the electrolytes and how to manage and supplement with sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And that was the main game changer for me. I decided to take another shot at it, correcting the things that I found in that video that I was doing wrong, mainly my electrolytes. And that again was the fall of 2016, and I have never looked back since. I've been keto ever since, and continued my research into intermittent fasting, experienced incredible benefits from intermittent fasting. And then, up until actually taking it to what I tell people is taking keto to the next level, which is doing the deeper state keto program, which got me to the best physical condition I've ever been in my life, with a top weight loss from beginning to end of about 43, 44 pounds. So it's pretty insane, but one thing I do want to emphasize is that what was initially, all about losing weight and, essentially being able to be lean and fit year round, that turned into a situation where that was just icing on the cake. What made me such a believer in the ketogenic diet and has made me convinced that I will keep it a lifestyle for the rest of my life, no matter what, is the mental clarity and the focus and recovering completely from my depression, my anxiety, my PTSD issues that I was suffering from. And I went from like barely getting any sleep to now I get great sleep at night. And it healed me mentally and then brought me to the best physical condition of my life. And in my mind, I've seen the benefits, so I don't care what anybody has to say negative about the ketogenic diet. I've proven it to myself and made myself a believer in it.
So I want to go back a little bit because you covered so much, Brandon, in the last few minutes or whatnot. Anxiety and depression, those are both words that come up frequently in our group and in discussions, and guys don't talk about those things. And what was you talked about talking with your dad and that trip and everything. What were you feeling inside that told you that that's what it was, that it was the anxiety and depression, that it wasn't the working out or the diet, but you knew that there was something off somewhere that was just getting to you more and more every day?
Depression is it's a crazy thing. It's a little bit hard to describe, but I felt like that there was like a sense of hopelessness. There was a sense of losing a grasp of control, of being able to manage your life. And on top of that, I felt like a lot of it had to do with that feeling of a lack of control. And I think a lot of that came from my ability to focus was like unraveling. Like I could hardly keep my mind focused. And, fortunately it didn't get to a point where it started actually, showing in my performance and work or to a noticeable extent with those around me. I essentially felt like I was barely hanging on and barely able to, keep all the balls in the air that I was required to. And I even remember like I would want to focus on something, like even during my workouts, like my mind would be going, all over the place. Like that inability to focus on one task, on one thing with one purpose and get what you want out of it seemed gone. And that's what really started to scare me was, this feeling like I can't pull it together and perform the way I believe I need to. And it's almost like I've lost the ability to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
You weren't doing low risk police work either.
No, it was, there was a lot of, instances that happened during that. So I was, a lot of this, I believe, was magnified during the time that I was undercover. And, I was undercover in the city that I lived. And so it was extremely stressful. I still remember, my wife and kids kids had a cover story if we ran into a drug dealer I was purchasing from in an undercover case, when I was off out at Walmart or something with the family. And there were instances of walking into restaurants and I would make eye contact with the cook in the back that was a drug dealer that I had arrested, and we'd have to turn around and walk right back out. There, instances, and then there was like the really heightened instances where, in one situation when I was on the federal drug task force with the FBI, that I had just indicted a drug dealer where we lived, a very well-known drug dealer, and one of my family members left our house and then ended up calling us terrified, saying she had been followed from our driveway all the way across town back to her house. And to the point that she didn't even feel safe pulling in her driveway. She went to the neighborhood community pool in order to get that car to stop following her. And it was all of these situations, magnified all of the things that I was already struggling with, but this took it to the next level to where I could barely sleep, and I would wake up to every little noise in the house and would end up clearing my whole house with my firearm. And multiple times in the night, every time somebody drove down our street, I was looking out the blinds, seeing who it was, if it was somebody I was working a case on, if it was a drug dealer or an informant or something like that. And that stress really compounded things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wow.
Alberto?
It was a lot. That was a lot. So how did you transition from that to your current career? Did you just have enough?
So when Ferguson, Missouri happened, when everything that went down in Ferguson with Michael Brown, I believe was his name, that was a turning point for law enforcement. And the climate was already getting bad with attacks against law enforcement and this targeting of law enforcement in the media and by certain people in the community. And it just continued to get worse. And I believe a breaking point for me, and especially this was absolutely a defining point for one of my brothers that was also a police officer at the same department I was at, was the shootings in Dallas, where I think it was 8 police officers that were killed at that protest. And it just kept compounding to the point where I was realizing I was trying to be the best that I could be at everything. And I couldn't be the best police officer that I could be and do all that was being demanded of me in that position, and also be the best husband and father that I could be. And I got to a point to where I realized that if I wasn't careful, I may end up like a lot of the guys that, withstand a full career in law enforcement for 25, 30 years. And yeah, they end up attaining a high rank and a nice paycheck, but their family is gone. And I began getting concerned that this was destroying my relationships with my wife and with my kids. And the situation around the pay and the support, from city council was not there. And all of these things just kept compounding. They kept increasing our insurance and all that and taking away benefits. And my wife and I discussed all of these things, and, everybody kept telling us, that we'd be crazy to leave because I was 15 years into a career. But I had decided that enough was enough, and that I needed to get out of it for not only my own for myself, but also for my family, and that if my wife and my kids were my top priority, second only to my faith in Jesus Christ, then I needed to take action that lined up with that. And so we started to look at different job opportunities and different avenues maybe that we could go down. And I already was following Keto Savage Robert Sykes on YouTube and was already buying the keto bricks. I would bring them on patrol with me and have them in the car. And so I loved the product and saw that they ended up announcing that they were hiring for a production manager over Keto Brick. And my wife ended up saying that she would back me on it. And we took a trip out and interviewed for the job. And I was blessed enough to get the opportunity that led me to where I am now.
Yep. Yeah, it's been fun to get to watch everything through the Keto Bricks evolution and growth through the last couple of years, and seeing the team build around it. Now, I've had the benefit of being on the compound, be able to get to interact with you guys in person, and you just are it's a great group of people that Robert and Crystal have pulled together around them, and so you fit right in from everything that I can tell. You're helping make it be the best it possibly can be, but really, really cool stuff. And you've got some believers in the Keto Brick product here. I know that I am, at least. I've got 4 different flavors in my office. Actually, no, 3. I finished my last peanut butter. You guys need to do that one again soon.
Oh man, that peanut butter one. When you guys are talking about that fudge consistency, if that one does it. That one does it. That one hits the spot on that particular factor, like on the spot.
Mm-hmm. And the pumpkin pie is excellent as well.
Oh yeah,
I've talked about it before. Like I have issues with the Keto Brick, but it's not the Keto Brick's fault. It's kind of a funny story. You know, I have 3 kids too, and this was actually last year when I was going through a bulk, but I wasn't tracking. That's what got me going through this one and tracking religiously, because like it kind of worked, but I had no idea why, because I just wasn't really watching my numbers. So like every night after dinner, I would take a Keto Brick, chop it up, mix it with a cup of heavy whipping cream, and just eat it like cereal. Well, you know, my
that sounds
my lovely
amazing.
6-year-old daughter, it's really good. Well, my lovely 6-year-old daughter, who's tried to kill me on 2 separate occasions now. I have pretty severe stomach issues, and so I stay 100% strict keto. And so she comes home with a bug from school, that a stomach bug that took me out for about a week and a half. But the very last thing I ate,
oh no,
before that hit me was a Keto Brick. And I probably still got 5 or 6 of them in the cupboard. And if I've even gone as far as if I even open up the package, I can't even get past that.
That's totally understandable, man. It's just inevitable. It happens.
Yeah, I mean, it was so bad. It was when I was finally able to like get up and around. Like I would walk, like my smoker in the backyard is like 20 or 30 feet from the door. I would walk out the back door. I could smell the smoker, and that would make me nauseous.
Wow.
So yeah, I was in bad shape for a little minute there. Like ever since I have like I think 6 or 7 of the original Mocha Keto Bricks left, and I'm just like I think my next experiment is going to be like melt them down and put them over bacon and see if I can get through them that way. But I'm looking for new and interesting ways to get back on board.
Yeah. Well, you got to try my most recent way of enjoying it is to melt it down and then to melt it down to where it's a liquid in the microwave, about 30 to 45 seconds, and then use pork rinds, plain pork rinds, to scoop it up. And it might not sound that appealing initially, but it is amazing.
Sounds like it.
It is awesome.
Sounds like you're making a bunch of low-fat ketoers have brains explode right about now.
So, actually, that's a great question, because one of the things that you did during your prep was high fat, and we're talking legit high fat. So Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So that was one thing. Like when I first was learning the Deeper State keto program, I kind of had this initial reaction where I was like, is this even possible? Like, I was like, this is super, super high fat. Like, over, you're at least 80% of your calories coming from fat. You're restricting your carbohydrates to no more than 10 total carbs. And I was like, how do you even do that? And then you're also taking into account your calories, and you're gradually reducing your calories, over the weeks, of the program. And I started to find difficulties with trying to keep my protein at the level that it needed to be at, which at the end of in the last week before the show, I had gotten down to 1,466 calories. Right at about 133 grams of fat and only 57 grams of protein. And then you're still talking no more than 10 total carbs. And it was like this little puzzle of trying to figure out how to hit the super high fat number without going over the protein number. And
yeah, it's a challenge.
It is definitely. And your body does go through a little bit of adjustment with those high fats. So if anybody, is experiencing like some slight digestive issues or anything like that, like your body does have to go through a little bit of an adjustment. But I think that kind of comes with anything, dietary when you switch things up. But the program works. My body responded, better than it has to anything else. And I really felt optimal at that higher fat level, because in the first month of deeper state keto, you go through this little bit of an experiment where you're trying to determine your own personal fat and protein threshold. So during that first month, you're gradually week by week lowering the fat and increasing the protein, and you're supposed to do that until you see some type of adverse side effects, like either, digestive issues, a weight stall, a slight weight increase, bloating, things like that start to mount up. And then, then you're able to kind of better determine, am I a 75% fat or a 70% fat, or do I need to be up at the 80% fat? And does my body need more or less protein? So it's, I've said it before, like I've never seen a more detailed and a more strategic program than DSK, and the proof is in the pudding with it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The for those that really want to dive deep into some of the science and some of the experience that was had by Brandon for the prep, he and Robert sat down and did about 3 hours worth of conversation that are on both in video and in podcast form. I might have had a hand in the video, just saying. Yes. So it's that's a really great thing, great way to really, really dive deep and hear, creator of Deeper State talk with one of the people that has really maximized its usage in a way that Robert never planned. They dive into all the nicks and crannies of it. It's really a pretty great conversation.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I've learned a great deal from Robert. One of the things that's really surprised me was that I actually even got to a point, you wouldn't think this in a bodybuilding prep, that you would ever get to a point where you would cut out eggs. But I had to cut out eggs because it would throw my protein way too high before I hit my fat macros. And what ended up, do you mind if I go into my use of how I utilize the keto brick during my prep?
Oh, please.
Okay, so I was a fan of the product beforehand and thought, was a believer in its super high quality. But this process, this 20 weeks of prep using the keto brick, I used it from day one all the way through to the end of my prep, including peak week, the week before the show, including the night before the show during my refeed meal, and then during the actual day of the competition up until an hour before stepping on stage. But I had cut out eggs at a certain point. So if that goes to show you the quality and the effectiveness of the keto brick, and it really proved to me how effective it is as it's not just a keto or a really good keto product. It's a performance bar, and can be utilized as such. And what was funny is when I would be struggling to try and determine how I could hit these macros, when I would plug in a portion of the keto brick, everything ended up evening out, because the keto brick is, it's the macros in it are just incredible, with it being over 80% fat. And so each keto brick, is around, 90 some grams of fat, down the carbs range from 12 to 16 grams per brick, but that's for the total 1,000 calorie brick. There's 12 to 16 total carbs depending on the flavor, and then I believe it's like around 30 to 33 or 34 grams of protein per brick depending on the flavor. And I was just amazed that I could, continually implement this delicious product that, all the way through beginning to end. And what was also amazing was when my body was in this depleted state, you can really tell how your body responds to different foods. And, whether your body is benefiting off of the nutrients or whether you kind of start feeling like you're becoming nutrient deficient, because if you're not getting something of a good quality source and you're at a very, severe caloric deficit, you're going to feel it. And I would feel the days, throughout this competition, utilizing the keto brick, my body would feel so much better after consuming the product. It was like I was literally absorbing all of the nutrients and would not only feel better immediately after, but the next morning, it was a noticeable difference when I would have it at night, before bed. So that's why I have the absolute, it may sound cocky, but I don't intend for it to come across this way, but I know the man that put the recipe together. I know for a fact as the manager that we literally use the highest quality of ingredients. It ends up, Robert is the master keto chef producing an awesome taste. And, it is in absolutely perfect ketogenic macros. And, there's no better keto product on the market. So I am very, proud to be a part of the team that produces what is in my mind the best keto product on the market, hands down.
Oh, that's amazing. And we're gonna continue this fanboy train for a minute, which I'm sure you won't mind at all. But I've been a fat adapted for years, and one thing that always strikes with me is with Robert, and he refers to it as keto adapted. Like he always says you're deeply keto adapted, and I personally almost feel like when you've been fat adapted for years, you almost have a different set of rules that you can play by as opposed to just first getting into keto your first year or whatever.
Right.
The macros I'm using now, ironically, are the Keto Savage Lean Gain macros. That's exactly where I got them from. Before that, I was like high fat. I've always been high fat. That's just what I like. It's what my body likes. But I was high fat, high protein. Over 300 grams of fat a day, probably 300 to 350 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
And so when I decided, and all food, 100% food.
Wow.
So when I decided I went through a low fat cut just as an experiment. I think it was about from June to July. Obviously, you cut out what you're eating the most of, your calories go down. The cut worked. I felt miserable. So after I kind of did that for 4 weeks, I was like, okay, that works. So I wanted to go the complete opposite route for the exact reason that, the whole argument about eating fat, making you fat.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, so one of two things are going to happen here. Either I'm going to get fat and weak, dropping my protein down to quote unquote low,
mm-hmm.
or the opposite, or nothing's going to happen. So, I've been doing this for years. It took me, and Chris can attest to this, it took me 7 weeks to figure out how to hit my calories at 3,700, hit my fat at 310 grams, and get my protein low down to 185. I could not for the life of me. I could hit the 3,700 all day long. I could hit the 310 all day long, but I'd be like at 280 grams of protein.
Right.
So when you were saying there's a bit of a challenge there, like I've done things with butter that are unmentionable on some Facebook pages. And I tell people like butter is my secret weapon, but I've nailed them. Like I've nailed the macros consistently now, probably since mid-September. And like I was saying earlier, I'm at over 300 grams of fat at what some would consider low at 185 grams of protein, in comparison to everything else.
Right.
And my belt went up. And I should have measured. I didn't measure. Like I've gotten heavier, and my waist has gone up about no more than a half an inch.
Wow.
So, point being, I'm eating a lot. I train hard. Obviously, that's got to go into it. And we have a lot of guys in the group that I don't want to say they're misinformed, because everything works for you. It's got to work for you. And I'm a high fat. I always talk about high fat. You got to get your high fat. It's going to work. But you're about my size.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5'8", currently 180 pounds.
Okay.
Now, you cut back to 1,400 calories on the week of your competition. And I
Yes.
think you would agree that that is not a healthy number, even that someone that's our size. And we see it over and over and over again where we got, guys in the group and like this is their daily goal.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of get like your thought on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was following the protocol to the extent for the specific goal of bringing my best physique possible at a single moment in time of stepping on stage. And those low calories are it's not healthy to be that low and sustain that for any length of time. It was done as a strategy for a specific purpose, and it worked, but I was feeling the negative effects from that and did not feel good. And your hormones start to get messed up and start to tank, and you start struggling with I actually felt weak because my body wasn't being supplied the nutrients that it needed, but yet this strategy did what it needed for me on stage. But then also, like, I hope people realize the physique that I stepped on stage with is not a sustainable level at all either, in my opinion. That level of such low body fat and that level of leanness is not, in my opinion, healthy to sustain. And it was great for the competition, and I still have maintained a goal of being lean and fit year round, and the ketogenic diet affords me the ability to do that, but not to the extent that I stood on stage. And I would not recommend anybody dipping below 1,500 calories, maybe even 1,600, unless it's for a specific strategy for a very set amount of time for a specific purpose, and then it's done with, and you return back to normal eating and as far as normal ketogenic lifestyle eating at a healthy caloric intake.
Well, one of the notes that Robert was giving you during the video of the podcast was that your starting caloric level whenever you started DSK 20 weeks previous was really low to begin with.
Yes.
And so you had to be that much lower whenever you came competition time.
Yes.
So that was a factor. And if you were to do it again, I'm guessing you would probably have ramped up a little bit so that you had more runway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing that, I hadn't really learned until I came and started learning from Robert. About ramping up your metabolism and the importance of eating a certain amount of calories for your body type and activity level, and this concept of onboarding during a diet and offboarding, and like reverse dieting and ramping your calories back up. Like, I had never taken that into account before. And yeah, my calories began at the very first week of my cut was between 2,200 and 2,300 calories. And I was low 2000s to mid 2000s, normally. And, so yeah, I was very, very low to start off with. And I actually think my metabolism was, a little bit damaged because I had done, in my opinion, I had way overdone it with, OMAD style fasting as well. And then restricting my caloric intake. So, not the optimal starting place, for sure.
You still made the best of it.
I did. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about macros, because one of the things when the group was started a couple of years ago, my thinking was that this group is for guys who are already familiar with keto, and they've gone through the beginner group type vibe and understood things and whatnot. So they're already familiar, but we still have, and deservedly so, we still have guys that request to join the group, and they're like, and one of our security questions is, what are your macros? Like, I don't know. Or they get it, they will tell in their Transformation Tuesday post that they've dropped 75 pounds or they've done this or whatever. And they're kind of doing the same thing that they've been doing the whole time, and they aren't tweaking like they should. So, I mean, we could go on for hours about about this, but give me kind of a snapshot of what you tell somebody when you describe the process of determining the macros for that individual person.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so I've been coaching clients with on the ketogenic diet, for a little while now, and I'm now a coach on the Deeper State Keto platform. And when we go into determining, somebody's macros, there's a lot that goes into that. And one of the things that you consider is where their current caloric intake is, if you're in determining the total calories. Looking at what their total caloric intake is, and then immediately, off the top, I generally, and what's funny is a lot of people have no idea what their total caloric intake is, and a lot of people, surprisingly enough, don't even know what a macro is. And so then when you're trying to gather this information to be able to start somebody off, and to get them slowly to adjust, it's hard when those are the, factors that you're dealing with, because it really leaves you with not much to work with as far as determining what's best for them as an individual. So usually what I'll tell people is, all right, we're going to focus on eating until you're fully satisfied. I want you to eat whenever you're hungry until you're fully satisfied. I want you to track everything, and I want you to focus on the macro percentages. I want you to try and get your fat between the 70 and 80% mark, your protein in between the 20 and 30% mark, and then to try and keep your carbohydrates down to 5%. And that's usually where I'll start somebody at that is beginning from scratch. And then I'll tell them, like, if they don't know what their general caloric intake is, I will tell them to eat whenever they're hungry and eat till they're full, and see where kind of they're pinging at the end of the day. And what's funny is a lot of people are drastically under eating. And I have to end up telling them, like, you need to be getting in more calories. And especially before we start doing any type of a gradual caloric reduction week to week.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. I think also when you talk about the macros and everything, just how people aren't always acclimated to what a cupful is, so to speak.
Right.
They think a spoon might be a cupful, or, you have that idea of the fist size piece of meat when you eat and all. I mean, there's so many different things out there. And so you grab whatever and just like, oh, it's this. And you may look at a wrapper and see that it has X number of carbs, and okay, well, that falls into play, but you don't look at the serving size, and you eat the whole thing and, oh, there were 3 servings in that, and now I'm maxed out. There's just so many pieces in it, and I think it's a pretty common thing, and Alberto and Chris may agree, I don't know, but that's a lot of guys who are new to keto, when they request to join, that's one of the things where they're like, we don't know.
Yeah.
And you have to, for what we do in our group, you have to kind of have already done your homework to get in there and like, okay, I know. And it doesn't mean we won't help anybody, but you need to know some basics in order to really step up and really hone in on things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would say, to some people, they were asking, that were just starting off, and they would be shocked that I would tell them, don't worry about the calories, eat when you're hungry, eat till you're full, but still track everything and make sure your macros are fitting within those ranges using a tracking app like MyFitnessPal. And I would tell them, I was like, I don't care about you testing your ketones. Like, if you want to, that's great. But I actually had never tested my ketones until the NAKA competition, because it required it in order to compete. If you are hitting those macro percentages, and when you're new into it, you need to be weighing out your foods and measuring out things because you don't have the experience to eyeball yet. And if you're truly trying to maximize your results, then you need to be measuring out and weighing out. But as long as you're hitting those macro percentages, you are going to be in ketosis. And that's why I don't put much stock in testing on a regular basis. The focus really needs to be on tracking your foods and hitting those macro percentages.
Yep.
I got one last for you, and it's about bodybuilding because that was my first ever being at a bodybuilding competition. I was fascinated by the whole thing. But how do you get judged? Does it go by points? Is it just by what they see? And then does being like spray tanned have anything to do with that, or is that like an optional thing?
All right.
Now we're getting more stuff.
So,
And I mean that's a legitimate question. I'm not like trying to be a smart ass or anything, but like because I know the gentleman that was next to you, I think his name was Gary. I mean that guy was in phenomenal shape too, but he was clearly not as tan as you. I mean that guy was as ripped gets as well, but it just the lights bounced off of you better.
yeah, and that I owe that to Robert's guidance for sure. So having somebody around me that is literally a professional was obviously very beneficial for me. But so we were judged on several different things. I'm going to try and remember what they were, but they were you were going to be judged on your posing, your conditioning, and the specific body parts that they were emphasizing for the competition were your delts and your lats. And I'm trying to think if there was I think there was like presentation or something to that effect was a part of it, and the tan definitely fits in there. I actually got comments from the judges on our score sheets about how much the tan positively affected everything that I did. And it wasn't, I did something that none of the other competitors did, following Robert's guidance. Everybody else did the spray tan. I did not. About a month before the show, I started going to a tanning bed on a regular basis to get a base tan. And I am very pasty white. Like, I don't tan, I burn. And so actually the first time I went into the tanning bed, the girl was like, just go in there for 5 minutes. There's no way you'll burn. And I was burned for 4 days. So so then they just laughed when I came back in, and I was like, I'm going to only do 3 minutes. And gradually worked out from there. But then before the competition is when, if you go to the Keto Savage YouTube page and watch the YouTube video of the vlog of the competition, you'll see them applying the Dream Tan product on me. And that's what really brought out that bronze statue-like appearance. And it's actually the same thing that all the pros use to stand on stage at, the biggest competitions in the country. And that clearly, set it apart for me. And then there was those different areas that they hit on, the posing, the conditioning, the condition of your delts, and the condition of your lats. And I believe I may be missing one that I can't remember, but it's and then the women's were slightly different, but yeah, the score sheets, I mean, they were looking at all of that, and they took into consideration, like, one thing that hurt me was that my posing wasn't smooth. Like, I was actually, I don't know if you could tell, but I was actually like shaking while I was up there. And what a lot of people don't know is, and it took me a minute to realize, because I was like literally up there, and I don't know if my expression conveyed what I was thinking, but I was like, why the heck am I shaking so bad? Like, I was like, I feel hyped and I feel the adrenaline, and I'm trying to flex with everything that I have, but I shouldn't be shaking this much. And what ended up, so the reason that I was shaking so much, I'm sure the adrenaline and the nerves and all of that played into it somewhat, but I had actually injured my back a few days leading up into the show. And every time during posing practice, it was aggravating this strain, this muscle strain in my back, and it was getting worse and worse. And then on show day, it was actually spasming. Like Robert said, he could actually see on the video as I was flexing, the muscle in my lower back were actually spasming. And so every time I would flex and then release my pose, it was like shooting excruciating pain in my back, to the point that after the competition, I didn't train at all for a week, and my back still hurts now. And it's been 3 weeks since the competition. So I attribute that a lot to the shaking
Yeah.
that was on stage. It was very painful.
That would certainly do it. Anytime that you have pain that can cause all sorts of different things, and then pain in the back, you've got all sorts of crazy stuff that ties into that. So yeah. So that's definitely good feedback for anybody that wants to do one of these competitions. NAKA is going to take on 2020 and wants to be the biggest thing that's hit the keto sphere in going into 2020, bigger and better than this last year. So we're excited to see what Cody is going to do. He's been on the podcast, and so he's a friend of ours at this point, and so we're excited to be able to support and rep the NAKA brand by all means.
Yes.
Well, gents, any other parting shots? Any other questions? I think that Brandon did an excellent job of answering all of our questions and more.
I will that I did not realize, honestly, Brandon, that your direct connection with Keto Brick when I started the podcast saying I was gnawing on one at the moment. So, yes, kudos. I have learned that you do not need to refrigerate these items. So,
Correct. That's actually, one of the best things about them. They're perfect on the go, shelf stable.
Yeah, we did a little pre-podcast recording meeting earlier this evening, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm about to bite in. Oh boy!" He had it in the fridge. We're like, "Yeah, let it thaw. It will
let it thaw. Let it thaw."
It does get better.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, any other parting shots?
I would like to say something real quick if you guys don't mind. I just
absolutely
I would just like to say it's an honor to have placed first at the first ever keto bodybuilding competition, and my hat's off to Cody for the event that he put on and for what he's trying to do through that. And I'm very proud to hold the title for the next year, and definitely see the benefits of this movement and what he's trying to do. And I can't wait to see what comes next year with the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you going to compete, or are you going to sit it out?
Well, that will ultimately be up. I don't know. It was very challenging. Like, if anybody's considering doing a competition, and they've kind of always wanted to do at least one, like that's kind of what was in my mind. I would definitely recommend it, because it takes you to a level and challenges you in a way that, when you come out on the other side, even if you don't place first, you've just grown so much as an individual through testing yourself and overcoming that adversity. I say that with a little bit of a caveat there that if you have a spouse and children, get their support beforehand, and then don't be surprised if that support's not there the second go around. Just because nobody really knows what it's actually going to be like going into it the first time, and it is extremely challenging, and everybody around you is affected. That they may not support it the second go around or want to go through with you what they went through with you before.
Good word. Good encouragement. Alberto?
Oh, I'm good, man. I got my bodybuilding question in there.
Yeah.
I know you had mentioned that you were a coach, and you're on Instagram. If you want to share all that information in case someone's interested in your services,
yeah,
I mean, put that out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm the as I've said, I'm the production manager for Keto Brick, the best keto product on the market, hands down. And then I'm also a coach for Deeper State Keto on Instagram. That's at Deeper State Keto, or you can go to the website at deeperstateketo.com. That's also Robert Sykes' creation, and is taking keto to the next level. And then on Instagram, my Instagram handle is Brandon BRANDON .T.Clark CLARK, and then I'm also on Facebook under Brandon Clark.
I don't remember. Did we get you into the group?
Yes, yeah, I am in the Facebook group now. Yes.
So that's another way that people can tag you or ask questions that way as well.
Yes.
And that's kind of the same with all of us. So let's go through our socials unless there's any other business to attend to. So for me, if you want to get in contact with me for anything, you can reach me at Duckman Keto for all my ketogenic stuff. Duckman1221 on Instagram for for pretty much anything else that's just kind of life. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're on the group, and so you can reach us there. Jim, how about you?
Again, the group best option. Also, Instagram at Jim Inman JR. Been a little slow on the Instagram lately. Nothing been going on other than work and life and all that other stuff. So, but still hit me up over there. And yeah.
Cool. Alberto, you're up.
I am the Keto Cholo on Instagram, and that's where all my keto stuff is. And the other next easiest place to get a hold of me would be on the Facebook group as well. I'm always on there. Answer all your guys' questions as any of these guys will, and just do what we do.
Absolutely. Okay. You can also reach us at the podcast in general by emailing us at ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website for links to all of our socials, all of our groups or Facebook pages, the podcast itself. You can do so by going to Keto Man's Club podcast or theketomansclub.com. And so that's and the ways that you can get in contact with us as the podcast. So please do that. Also, one quick plug: if you get the chance to, please leave a comment or a comment or a review there on the podcast app that you're using. It helps the algorithm, helps us get the word out a little bit. We're wanting to grow this thing even bigger, and any little bit that you can do in that regard helps us a ton. So we appreciate the feedback that has been provided. Keep it up if you would. Okay, well, that's it for this week. Until next week, make sure to eat meat, lift heavy, sleep, and repeat. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.